Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to Omens, episode 16. I'm Ryan, AM Air Pronouns. I'm your host. And Happy New Year. Welcome to 2021. Everybody wants to cancel their free subscription already. But we're not focusing on that. Today we're focusing on tarot, and we're going to be talking about the Six of Wands. I put my birds kind of to bed, as I've been doing the last few episodes, kind of calm them down, and as soon as I started talking, well, I guess they're arguing about something, so sorry, not sorry, sort of sorry, I guess. Let me adjust this. Alright. Quick update on the Tarot 101 series of videos they're doing. I know I was hoping to get them done before the end of December. That did not happen. I'll probably just release them as this month's 5th week special. That's my current plan. Sorry about that, but meh. It's not like many people are watching right now. Alright. So, let's go ahead and dive into the Six of Wands. So, for our first section, parameter, we're talking about the number 6, the numerology. And I have my Black Cat Tarot to kind of keep up for that. We've got here in the card is a cat on a stage in front of a kind of a deserty field with monolithic stones and a tree in the background. And a strangely focusing camera. And he's holding up like one wand with a bunch of other wands. Or no, he's holding up a trophy while wearing a medallion. That's what it's called. And he's got wands and roses scattered in front of him from the adoring audience in front of him. Alright. So, the first parameter, the number 6. So, 6 in Pythagorean numerology is the center of the mind or thinking plane in the birth chart. It is the top plane, mental plane. 6 represents creativity and destruction. It's an integration of both the analytical from the 3 of one, the analytical reasoning way of thinking from the 3, integrated with the responsible idealism of the 9, the expansive creativity of the 9. So 6 is an integration of both reason and intuition, basically. And because it's sitting in the center and it's an integration, it kind of facilitates smooth working of the entire mind plane. So if you have a 6 in your numerological birth chart, depending on how many 6s you have, can change it, because when it comes to 6, well, it is very creative and like all kinds of wonderful expansive stuff. And once you get past 1 6, say like 2 6s, that's when the destructive aspect of the 6 starts coming into play. The worry, stress, depression, anxiety. It's a balance. The 6 is 2 sides of basically kind of the same coin. It's like somebody with a 6 would probably, for an example, be very creative, artistic, outgoing, and able to rationalize stuff. But on the flip side, they would probably have some small amounts of neurological diversity in the in having depression and possibly anxiety and or anxiety as well, or something along those lines. So with the 6, you end up with both sides pretty much. So that's the 6 in numerology. It's both creation and destruction. It's reasoning and intuition, yada, yada, yada. Already drying out my throat. Alright, so the next card we have, or the next parameter we have is the sort of kind of alchemical or elemental parameter, I guess you could call it. So of course, wands, fire. I'm going to use my Hush Tarot for this one, and I was a little surprised at the because I was like, okay, which deck wants to be used for this aspect, and Hush Tarot was pretty strong. I'm like, okay, because you can see on this one, there's not much fire. It's a little fairy-sized knight, I guess. Kind of a feminine-looking knight. Carrying a war banner, riding a sparrow, who's also carrying a spear, or a halberd, sorry. And the knight's carrying a spear / war banner. I'm not sure what that is. And then there's like there's like 4 bees also carrying spears, all flying around with this fae. And it looks like they're on their way to go conquer something or what have you. So no fire in this card, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to use it as we're talking about fire. So the aspect of fire that I see the Six of Wands embodying is kind of the creative fire of a kiln, a forge, an oven, iron, a wood burning tool, what have you. It's that fire harness to create something. Like in pottery, you fire up a kiln to harden your pottery piece, and it's got to be set on fire to create something beautiful. So it's that creative aspect of fire, which we can kind of see here in that this fairy, she's in charge of these bees and the sparrow, so she's harnessed these bees. Actually, they're probably more wasps. She's harnessed these wasps' destructive tendencies to sting and whatnot. Or maybe they're kind of all folded in together, so you can't really quite see what type of stinging yellow and black insect they are. But either way, they sting. And their stings feel like fire. I can attest to that. Especially wasp stings. Those really hurt. So she's harnessed their fire, their destructive aspects to help her create something, to overcome her foes, to build whatever it is she's building. But on the flip side of that, it is fire. You leave an iron on or a stove, even an electric or gas stove. Not necessarily like a big bread oven with an actual fire in it, but it still harnessed fire, basically, air quotes, because most of our modern tools don't use like literal actual fire, but it's still heat. So you could call it harnessed fire. But you leave those on and you leave the place, more than likely, especially if something tips over or they just sit there slowly heating, and there's no cooling off period, they overheat, they're going to start a very destructive fire, burn your house, your apartment down, whatever. So this aspect of fire is fire that's been safely harnessed to help create, in her case, conquer, move forward. But if not paid attention to and kept under rein, it can quickly become a disaster. These bees could get pissed off while fighting, go into a rage, and just sting anything and everything in their way type deal. So that's kind of the aspect of fire we have here. And then our next parameter is we're moving into our astrology of this card. So the first one, I really like the way I set up last month, and I'm going to keep it up. And I think, God damn it, I have an escapee bird. She's not going to be able to get back in the cage. Alright. So for our first section of our astrology, we're going to focus on the celestial deck I have, which here we've got 6 wands all lined up in a row at the bottom, kind of some cloudish, smoky stuff, and right above them we have a big raven. So the constellation for this card is Corvus, or the Corvid, which Corvus in Latin stood for both crows and ravens. Celestial has the Six of Wands representing a sextile aspect, so... Alright. Alright, I don't want the bird panicking like he did earlier, so just open it up so it might get a little bit noisier here. Case in point. Alright, so a sextile in astrology is when... Alright, so a sextile is basically when two planets are approximately 60 degrees apart. There's usually in astrology kind of an orb. It's very rare that any aspect is exactly so many degrees. So planets that are approximately 60 degrees apart. It's considered an aspect of opportunity that is also considered to be harmonious. So, and I'm reading this out of my Complete Guide to Astrology by Louise Eddington. Sextile also requires conscious effort to assimilate and embody its potential power. But when activated, it opens pathways to growth that can bring great potential. So, sextile is very harmonious. If you have a sextile in your natal chart, or if that's kind of what's happening between two planets in the sky, that means whatever they're embodying together is very easeful and flowing, and it's a lot of it's opportunity, but it takes conscious effort to actually use that opportunity. It comes so naturally to you if it's in like your natal chart that you really don't even think about it. So which kind of plays along with the Six of Wands, and as we go, you'll start seeing that more. I apologize for the birds. I guess, maybe. I just have to talk louder than them. Alright, so the constellation of Corvus itself, the Raven. The Raven was actually sacred to Apollo, the sun god of the Greeks. It was considered a messenger of the gods, and also it was an omen of prophecy. It tended to signal prophecy. There's a few myths associated with Corvus, and I'll get into them, but the first one is to why the raven's feathers are black. So the myth of that is originally the raven's feathers were white. However, Apollo at one point set his messenger raven to watch over his latest lover, what's her name? Coronis. Coronis, who was pregnant. And Coronis basically, eventually, as she was pregnant, she kind of lost interest in Apollo and started getting it on with another guy. Well, the Raven went and told Apollo this, who got pissed off that the Raven did nothing to stop it, and so kind of like scorched his feather, or cursed him to scorch his feathers, so his feathers will always be black. And then Coronis' story is a little bit sad. Apollo sent his sister Artemis to end her, and right before her body burned, they cut the unborn child out of her womb and then gave the child to Chiron the centaur to raise. And that child was Asclepius. I don't know how to say his name. Asclepius, who was the eventual, like, basically damn near deific healer, eventually. Some other myths of Corvus that I'm going to read out Sandra Kine's Star Magic. Do with the constellation. 63. So Corvus is... it's actually part of a trinity of constellations, Crater, Hydra, and Virgo, or it's Crater, Hydra, and Corvus are all part of kind of a trinity of constellations. And we talked about Crater last month with the Five of Wands, and so there's not much to Crater in its mythology, but we'll hear a little bit about it here. So this constellation is located in the southern hemisphere, but can be seen low in the sky in the north. Meaning crow or raven in Latin, Corvus is the genus name for both of these birds. The Babylonians knew this constellation as the great storm bird and depicted it perched on a sea serpent pecking at its tail. It was associated with Adad, a god of rain and storms, because the constellation was most visible just before the rainy season. The ancient Arabs originally regarded this constellation as a camel, but after European influence it became known as a crow or raven. In Greek mythology, the crow is sacred to Apollo and Athena. Corvus shares a legend concerning Apollo's constellations Crater the Cup and Hydra the water snake. Versions of the story vary as to whether Apollo was simply thirsty or needed water for an altar sacrifice. At any rate, he sent Corvus with a cup to get water. Distracted from his mission by a fig tree, the crow decided to wait until the fruit ripened. After his feast, Corvus finally fetched the water and returned to Apollo. To bolster his alibi for being late, Corvus took a snake along to show Apollo that he had to subdue it to get the water. Angry at the obvious ruse, Apollo threw the crow, the cup, and the snake into the sky. He also put a curse on Corvus by placing him near the cup, but never allowing him to reach it. Perpetual thirst is said to be the reason why crows and ravens make raspy sounds. Another well-known story about a crow and a cup is one of Aesop's fables. It tells about a thirsty crow that could not reach the water in a cup, so he carefully dropped stones in it to raise the water level so he could drink. This story illustrates crows as intelligent and patient rather than greedy and deceitful, which is always nice. I grew up with a lot of ravens around, and even though they were kind of scavengers and dumpster divers, I still thought they were pretty awesome. A little bit about the magical interpretations and uses for Corvus. To the Greeks, crows and ravens functioned as messengers of the gods, carrying wisdom and secrets. The crow was considered an attribute of Mithras and a mischievous associate of Loki and Mercury. As an important symbol of war and death in Celtic mythology, the triple goddess known as the Morrigan, Bad, and Maka, appeared as a crow over battlefields. Because crows are scavengers and feed on dead things, they came to be regarded as messengers from the other world. The crow is considered to be on the edge between light and dark, life and death. In the cycle of life and death, death gives way to new life. Like so many of the spring constellations, Corvus has a dual nature. He is a solar crow, white by day, when we cannot see him, and black by night, his stars reveal it. Perhaps it is the crow's duality that makes him mysterious. The Celts believed crows and ravens to have powers of divination and prophecy. For this reason, we can call on Corvus to aid in divination and otherworld journeys. So that's a little bit about the constellation of Corvus. Crow in the Six of Wands. Which adds an interesting nuance, as all these celestial tarot cards do to their specific wands that you wouldn't usually associate with them. So, Six of Wands, I'd say the crow is both, Corvus is both victorious, but also he's victorious and kind of doing what he wants, but if he gets it slightly wrong and somebody catches him, he gets in trouble. This one definitely shows more the shadow side of the Six of Wands, and we'll get into that a little later when we go through the traditional meanings. But this raven, he can be kind of boastful and prideful and like, oh, I had to fight off this snake to get this cup of water, and that's why it took me so long, even though technically he was actually eating figs off a fig tree that he had waited for it to grow. So basically he pretends to be a hero, even though he was kind of being stupid. So that's the Celestial Tarot, the constellation for Six of Wands. And as for the specific astrology, so I've got my good tarot here. So we've got basically a hot air balloon attached to a giant, like old-fashioned ship. You know, like a pirate-style ship type deal from the 1800s or earlier than that, probably like, what was that, the 15 to 1600s, somewhere in there, and earlier. And it's got 5 other hot air balloons, just regular ones, floating kind of in the background, but we have this big one with the ship like flying first and foremost, and it's all decorated up. I think there might be a person standing on top somewhere. I'm not sure on that one. So the Golden Dawn named the Six of Wands the Lord of Victory. And the reason for that, in astrology, this is the Six of Wands, the second decan of Leo, so it's Jupiter in Leo, in the Chaldean order. So in the Six of Wands, Jupiter puts Leo in the spotlight and hands the sign all the adulation and praise it craves. Leo is the conquering hero, the star of the show. Leo can overcome quarrels and ignorance and pretenders to step into the spotlight as a confident, optimistic, and inspiring leader. Jupiter, the great benefic, which just means a very beneficial wish planet type deal. Jupiter is also in charge of the Wheel of Fortune in the tarot, and basically Jupiter spins that wheel and says to Leo, hello, here you go, you got all this luck, all this adoration, you're the conquering hero. And basically Jupiter sits there and bolsters Leo's already high level of pride and just goes, expand even more, like, here you go, this is yeah, everything you've already wanted. So it's like this, instead of just a regular hot air balloon, here we've got a ship attached to a hot air balloon. So this isn't just a little basket, this is a whole freaking like, I don't know what type of ship it is, I'm not a ship person, but it's got 2 masts, 3 sets of sails going back. Somebody knows what type of ship it is. Cool. But either way, it's a big ship, a lot of room to like live in, a whole bunch of people who wait and serve on you. So this is very much Jupiter and Leo. This is Jupiter going, a basket? Psh, we're not giving you a basket, we're giving you a whole ship with a huge crew. You won't have to do anything but be adored, basically. So it's like, you're the conquering hero. You slayed all the monsters, you saved the kingdom, here's your giant ship, hot air balloon, and a crew to go with it. So that's kind of the astrology of the Six of Wands. That's the astrology of it. So moving on from there to the Kabbalah, I actually have my Vice Versa Tarot here, which is a bit more bloodstained, I guess. So in Kabbalah, the Sephiroth associated with the Six of Wands is Sephiroth 6, Tiferet, which means beauty. It's the last Sephiroth of the Olam Baraya, or the world of creation. And it means beauty because it's one of the most important Sephiroth in the entire Tree of Life, because the Tree of Life, as the book Terra and the Tree of Life explains, is a system of it's a system of symmetry and balance. So Tiferet, which is the 6th Sephiroth, is exactly in the center of the entire Tree of Life. And it's right between the pillars of severity and mercy, and it's halfway between Keter, the crown, and Malkuth, the I forget what Malkuth stands for, but the very bottom. It's halfway between the very top and the very bottom, and either side. So it's a meeting place of higher and lower energies. A direct quote from the book Terra and the Tree of Life. The angels can't come down this far because they are disincarnate, and the animals can't come up this far because they lack the necessary conscious awareness. That's from Isabel Rideau Kleigman, who is the author of Terra and the Tree of Life. Noisies. Tiferet is associated with the sun and the heart chakra, so again we have Leo, and like a lot of Leo right there, because Leo is not only ruled by the sun, but also associated with the heart. It's a place of humanity, like the ultimate reach, not quite the ultimate reach of humanity, but humanity in its highest form, or one of its higher forms, basically. Or its highest form. It's also the place. Tiferet is also the place where divine descends into humanity to sacrifice. It's a place of both kind of sacrifice in Christianity. For those who know it, it'd be basically Jesus coming down from heaven to sacrifice himself. That's where Tiferet is the sacrifice. Another slightly more relatable concept is the Bodhisattva in Buddhism, which is someone who has obtained nirvana, like obtained the ultimate goal, become like formless, meaningless, but who's decided to come back to humanity to kind of help to help raise others to nirvana. Basically, they're sacrificing their ultimate bliss to bring others up to that. So that's that's kind of the divine coming down to humanity to lift it up. And then it's also, the other reason that works is it's also the place of the wounded healer, which is someone who's been through that muck and come out of it on the other side and wants to now help others up through that. Same concept. One of Isabel's examples for that was like someone going to an AA meeting. Her example was more like, if I went to an AA meeting and said, well, I've never had a problem with alcohol, but here's what I think about it, just get booed right out. I'm like, yeah, so in Tiferet, it's not, oh, I've never had that problem. The wounded healer is I've never had that problem, but I'm going to go help you. It's someone who's like, that's not going to help anybody because you don't know where they're coming from. So in Tiferet, it's someone who, I've been through this, I know the way out. It's like that kind of, this kind of story, I guess you'd almost call it a parable, of someone. So a man was walking along, and then he fell into a very deep hole. He was stuck in this hole, yelling for help, and along comes this preacher. And the guy's like, hey, help, I need help. And the preacher throws down a Bible. And the guy's like, no, I need to get out. And the preacher's like, oh, just read that, you'll be fine, you'll get out. And walks off. Well, the guy's still stuck down. So he keeps yelling, and then along comes this, what's another one? I forget what the exact ones are. Along comes this psychiatrist, and the guy yells for help, and the psychiatrist throws down a self-help book. The guy's like, what is this supposed to do? The psychiatrist is like, don't worry, just read it and work on yourself, and you'll eventually get out. And the guy's like, well, I'm still stuck down here, and the psychiatrist walks off. So the guy's yelling for help again, and along comes a buddy of his, and he's like, hey man, I need to get up, and the guy jumps down in the hole with him, and he's like, dude, now we're both stuck down here, what the hell? And the guy and his buddy's like, don't worry man, I've been down here before, I know the way out, follow me. That's what Tiferet is. Tiferet is that buddy jumping down into the hole with the guy going, been here, done this, I got out before, I'll get you out. That's what Tiferet is. So Tiferet in the Six of Wands, I've not been holding this card up at all. In the Six of Wands, it's, let me see this. It's triumph dependent on death. So we have here, on this side of the Six of Wands, we have a dude with a red cloak, riding a white horse, that's got kind of an orange diamond patterned, blanket covering, like a large blanket covering, which, is actually important, and we'll get to that. He's holding the laurel wreath, and there's a bunch of people around him who are all kind of cheering and holding their rods up. And he's looking over them like, hey, yeah, I see y'all. He's not really waving or anything, he's just looking at them like he's giving them a speech or something. However, and this is where the blank comes in, so, in the Tarot and the Tree of Life, she actually mentions this blanket, because in the RWS card, this blanket is, it's not so much here because the horse has got a foreleg out, but in the RWS, the blanket is huge. Like, it covers the entire bottom of the card. Like, it's completely impractical for a horse to wear, especially if you're riding. It's like, so she points out, like, what is under that blanket, and one of the examples she goes off is the Bible story of, what's his name? I think it was Jacob. Yeah, it was Jacob, who was working for a guy named Laban, or I forget what his name is. And the guy's like, okay, work for me for 7 years and I'll give you my beautiful daughter, younger daughter, to marry. So Jacob works for 7 years, and then on his wedding day, the veiled bride turns out to be the older daughter, Leah, who's not as pretty, and so he's pissed off that the guy, or whatever his name is like, nah, look, just work. She's my oldest daughter. She really needs to be married off first before I can marry my younger daughter. So you know what? Just work for me another 7 years, and then you can have Rachel, who is the pretty daughter. So Jacob works another 7 years and ends up married to Rachel too. So what? The reason she brought that up is she's like, the guy's name Laban or whatever means white, and it comes. It brings to mind I guess there's an idiom or something that says beware the man who rides a white horse, because it's like the horse is covered up, so you don't know if that's actually a horse under there or if it's two people like carrying this guy, or what this guy is hiding, what his victory is hiding. Now in the vice versa tarot, we can kind of see what that victory is hiding, because we look onto that side and we see the backs of all these soldiers who we couldn't quite see and were cheering him in that great sunset. And it's like, we realize that sunset might not be a sunset, that's probably a haze of fire, because there's billows of smoke. The sky is actually, what we can see through the smoke is actually just a clear blue, so it's like, it's not sunset. So we know on this side, that's not sunset or something, that's fire. Because we've got all kinds of smoke here, ranging from the back. These soldiers are all bloodied and are all bloodied. And they've got blood all over the clothes, and he's kind of looking over them with a solemn face. It's like, this victory was obtained through death, through battle. Which in the Kabbalah, we can take that as kind of a symbolic death, of like saying ego death. The only way to attain higherness, or a higher level, is through sacrificing, say, the ego self. Like, say, one of her examples was the athletic businessman father, hardcore dad, who was handing out cigars at his baby's birth, was having to put aside his tough attitude and his disappointment to take care of his very frail son, his neurodivergent daughter. It's like someone who's not going to live up to the, oh yeah, go out there and do football and whatever. He's having to put aside his ego validation and go, look, no, this kid isn't what I thought I wanted, but you know, I love them still the same. It's that fulfillment of love from a place of ego death. It's like, you know what? Yeah, we're never going to win, my kid's never going to win state championship of whatever the hell sport. But my kid is awesome as they are. They're a great artist. And yeah, she can't walk. She's in a wheelchair. But she is one of the sweetest kids you will ever meet. It's that kind of thing. It's like, through this ego death, this violent, brutal battle, we've come out victorious. Now, like I said, that's the higher side of this card. The shadow side, of course, is, like, who had to die. Like, maybe somebody else was stepped on to get this, victor there. But we'll get more into that a little bit later. I want to save that. Okay, well, that's 30 minutes in. Alright, and we're almost done. Well, not almost done, but you know what I mean. 3 cards to go. 3 more parameters. So, our next parameter, of course, continuing our Kabbalah, is the Kabbalistic Angel. And our angel for this card is, let's see if I can pronounce this right, Se'eha'iyah. Se'eha'iyah. Iyah. Ugh, that's a mouthful. And they're the Kabbalistic Angel 28. Their name means God who took evil. Their dominion, their psalm is Psalm 71:12. And Se'eha'iyah serves against infirmities and thunder, which is interesting. So basically, they are someone who helps heal or serves against any sort of, like, say, broken bone, infirmities, broken bones, sickness. Nothing chronic, I'd say, probably, but small stuff. And thunder. They protect against fires, ruined buildings, collapse and maladies, and rules over health and longevity of life. So, over health and longevity of life. Those who are... So, Se'ehi'ia is basically someone who protects people's health and property, I'd say. Something along those lines. But yeah, protects against infirmities, against fires, against collapsed buildings. It's like just about it protects against those random, just sudden hits of bad luck, or whatever you want to call it. Those born under Sahaya will be full of good judgment and will only act with prudence and circumspection. And I went ahead and looked both those words up. So prudence is basically acting with caution, like being very cautious. Like, should we really be doing that? Circumspection, hilariously enough, basically means quality of being unwilling to take risks. Quality of being unwilling to take risks. Someone who acts with prudence, with caution. So basically both the words are like somebody who basically doesn't want to take risks and wants to be very cautious and like note all the details before actually going and doing something. They're the physical guardian for those born from 2nd to the 6th of August. The moral guardian for those born January 29th, April 16th, June 27th, September 7th, and November 18th. And also the soul guardian for those born from 9 to 9:20 a.m. Give me one sec. Okay, they were all in the cage and I was going to shut it, but Gabe decided he was going to make an escape. So, they're a little quieter right now. So yeah. Rude. Yeah, so God who took evil. Not much else to say on this angel. Alright, our second to last parameter is the being associated with 6 of Wands in the Spirit of Halloween Tarot. And the being associated with this is a golem. So most of us probably knew at least kind of a hint of the folklore of golems. I believe it's golems. They're originally from Jewish folklore, and they're basically an animated anthropomorphic being created entirely from inanimate matter, usually clay or mud, that has been basically given life to serve their master. Excuse me. And so there's a lot on the folklore that I'm going to pull up here in a second. They're mentioned a couple of times. They're usually, it used to mean an amorphous, unformed material in both Psalms and medieval writing. Most commonly, so this is all straight from Wikipedia. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so on this card, we have basically a big rock-looking guy, just kind of standing in a circle of fire with a very small person in front of him. Circle of fire, he's got the Star of David, or the 6-pointed star. I think there's a specific difference between the actual Star of David and the 6-pointed star, but I'm not sure what it is. Underneath him. And he's a huge mountain-looking rock guy, and he's got trees all on his shoulders and head. And, yeah, he's kind of in the mountains. But yeah, so that's this card. So, the etymology of the word golem, it occurs once in the Bible in Psalm 139:16, which used the word golmi, my golem. That means my light form, raw material, connoting the unfinished human being before God's eyes. The Mishnah uses a term for an uncultivated person. In modern Hebrew, golem is used to mean dumb or helpless. Similarly, it is often used today as a metaphor for a mindless lunk or entity who serves a man under controlled conditions but is hostile to him under others. Golem passed into Yiddish as goylem to mean someone who is lethargic or beneath a stupor. So basically, it usually means somebody who's dumb, stupid, even though dumb isn't a good word to use. I apologize for that. Yeah, basically just a stupid person. So, the legends of golems. During the Middle Ages, passages from the Sefer Yetzirah, Book of Creation, were studied as a means to create an animated golem, although there is little in the writings of Jewish mysticism that supports this belief. It was believed that golems could be activated by an ecstatic experience. Guys, hey, calm it down. It is believed that golems could be activated by an ecstatic experience induced by the ritualistic use of various letters of the Hebrew alphabet forming a shem, any one of the names of God, wherein the shem was written on a piece of paper and inserted in the mouth or in the forehead of the golem. A golem is inscribed with the Hebrew words in some tales, for example, some versions of Shalom and Prague, as well as in Polish tales and versions of Brothers Grimm, such as the word emet, truth, in Hebrew, written on its forehead. The golem could then be deactivated by removing the aleph in emet, thus changing the inscription from truth to death. Met meaning dead. And one source credits 11th century Solomon ibn Gabirol with creating a golem, possibly female, for household chores. So I have a story here on the most famous golem narrative from the Golem of Prague, basically. So the most famous golem narrative involves Judah Loa ben Bezel, the late 16th century rabbi of Prague, also known as the Maharal, who reportedly created golem out of clay from the banks of Vltava River and brought it to life through rituals and Hebrew incantations to defend the Prague ghetto from anti-Semitic attacks and pogroms. Depending on the version of the legend, the Jews in Prague were to be either expelled or killed under the rule of Rudolf II, the Holy Roman Emperor. The golem was called Yosef and was known as Yosele. It was said that he could make himself invisible and summon spirits from the dead. Rabbi Loe deactivated the golem on Friday evenings by removing the shem before the Sabbath began, so as to let it rest on the Sabbath. Some versions have the golem eventually going on a murderous rampage. The rabbi then managed to pull the shem from his mouth and immobilize him in front of the synagogue, whereupon the golem fell in pieces. Golem's body was stored in the attic and Geniza of the Old New Synagogue, where it would be restored to life again if needed. According to legend, the body of Rabbi Loe's golem still lies in the synagogue attic. When the attic was renovated in 1883, no evidence of the golem was found. Some versions of the tale state that the golem was stolen from the Geniza and entombed in a graveyard in Prague's Ziskov district, where the Ziskov television tower now stands. A recent legend tells of a Nazi agent ascending to the synagogue attic in World War II and trying to stab the golem, but he died instead. The attic is not open to the general public. Some Orthodox Jews believe that the Maharal did actually create a golem. The evidence for this belief has been analyzed from an Orthodox Jewish perspective by Schneier Lehman. So, in general, a golem is a clay anthropomorphic being, or mud, or basically an immaterial object made animate, that in ritual is raised to basically be sort of alive. If we take the Abrahamic creation myth, or I'm not sure, the Genesis creation myth, then technically humans were golems originally, because Adam was made from clay and then God breathed life into him. Except for, so golems, you need to be as close to divinity as possible to be able to create a golem, but it wouldn't be as perfect as, say, like a whole human being, because, well, humans aren't God. So a golem would be created in ritual, and it'd be brought to life, and they were used as kind of servants who took their orders literally. So it'd be like talking, and like you got to be careful when talking to it when ordering a golem about, because they literally, if you said, go break down the tents, they might literally break the tent down instead of packing it away, like what you had originally meant. They're also kind of a cautionary tale of hubris, because in most of the tales they tended to eventually get upset and or violent or whatever due to different reasons, and then they basically become they'd become violent and confrontational. That's the word I was looking for. And so their creators would have to try to scratch out the LF or take out the shim piece of paper, whatever, and basically try to deactivate them. And they usually get hurt in the process. So, alright, let's get into the, there's more I want to say on, well, kind of all of these. But for that, let's go ahead and get into the traditional meaning. So I have my Tarot of the Old Path for here, and it's a medieval-looking dude riding a brown horse, actually, with the full fire regalia. It's not the oversized blanket or anything. It's just the kind of regular parade-style blanket and halter. All that. He's got 6 rods behind him, just tree branches held up, and he's holding onto one of them. And the laurel wreath is actually around his neck instead of on one of the branches. So the traditional meanings, kind of the keywords we got is victory, Lord of Victory. When this card comes up, one of the main keywords is victory. Optimism, hope, excitement, someone honored for victory, like a returning war hero or veteran. Self-confidence and pride. But since this is also a 6, it's not the end, so it's kind of just a stop and celebration on the way towards the end goal. It's like I've achieved, like, this case it's a little past halfway, so it's like I've achieved more than half of what I've been working towards, so I'm kind of celebrating that achievement, but I've still got more to go. Inverted, or the shadow side. Someone who's extremely full of themselves and won't stop talking about it. Boastfulness. Someone who's just given lip service. Someone who takes credit. A balloon of hot air. Somebody who's just full of hot air. And could be... And if it pops, they'll just... like when you're popping a balloon full of hot air, it just goes... They deflate very easily, if challenged. So, now we can really dive into some of these other cards, now that we kind of know, I mean, we kind of already knew a lot of it. But, so, what I wanted to say about the Golem is, this is an achievement. You've created an anthropomorphic being. Some of that hubris, however, again, like I said, it's a cautionary tale of hubris, is if that Golem gets out of control, well, you've got to take it down. One of the big things with it coming up, and part of what I was bringing up with the vice versa and the victor, the man riding a white horse, it's this victor, if you don't know what... Okay. That was a sudden spastic attack of zoomies for the birds. But anyway, you don't know who this dude stepped on to get where he is. On that side, we can tell there's definitely a serious conquering battle that happened, that people died, probably. I think the biggest warning that comes up with this one, especially the inverse of the shadow side, is somebody who basically, for example, say a manager who, their team did a ton of work, they got a lot of stuff done, and the manager's all like, good job, guys, good job, but to the actual top management, he's like, oh, I did all of this. So he gets the raise, he gets the promotion, he gets all the credit, And his underlings are like, we just got a good job, guys, and no, I'm not going to tell anybody that you guys actually helped me. That's a big part of the Six of Wands that comes up, is like someone who's just kind of a credit taker, who's just going to take credit for something somebody else did. Now, on the flip side, it's interesting because as I was reading through a lot of these Six of Wands, that came up a ton. And while that's almost never something I've ever heard associated with Six of Wands before. And the reason for that is usually if it comes up, it's a victory. It's like, hey, you did it. You deserve this accomplishment, and you can keep going forward. That's how I've always heard it. And inverse, the way I've often seen it, especially when the vice versa, is the one reason I've never quite connected with it is because it always seemed like a false victory, like something really bad happened to get you to this point. At least that's how I've always read this card. Now I've got like 3 different possible meanings for it, which is you actually accomplished something and you deserve this acclaim. You've accomplished this, but you really caused some serious damage in order to get to this point. Or someone who's just we're gonna pull up Black Cat for tarot for this. Someone who's just taken credit for something other people have done. Somebody who's just all up in their head of, oh, I totally did this all by myself. So we've got kind of 3 different takes on it, and you could call one the light side, the actual victory side. You'd call the middle one of kind of a hard won victory, like something definitely had to die, whether it was your ego or causing actual harm to other people to get to that point. And then you've got the really nasty shadow side, which is taking credit for what you didn't do. So we've got 3 different kind of ways to look at the Six of Wands. Shush. Yeah, that was a lot. I feel a little on breath, so that might be the binder. And the fact that I kept trying to talk over the birds, because of course I did this first thing in the morning. And they're very, very active in the morning, so apologies for the background chorus, but until I got somewhere else to record, we're stuck with it for the most part. I do try to put them away a little bit when I record, but meh. Alright, so next week, kind of was hoping to actually have a set detail of what all I wanted to put in there so I could tell people, but yeah, no, that didn't happen. So next week we'll be diving into Capricorn, an herb, a rune, and something else. And then the week after that, we'll have the Hierophants. And then the week after that, hopefully the Tarot 101. I try not to promise, but also, well, even if I do promise, there's no guarantee I'll keep it. So, but anyway, yeah, my goal is to bring out the Tarot 101 for the 5th week this month. So yeah, that's it for today. I hope y'all are doing okay. At the very least, it's the beginning of New Year, but we're we're still in the middle of winter, so even though everything's all bright and sunny, and you know what, we've gotten past all this bullshit stuff, but hey, there's new bullshit stuff cropping up. It's like, you know what, it's still the middle of winter. Take your time, go slow, don't be afraid to wrap yourself in blankets and drink hot chocolate even though the sun's coming back. It's like, just because the sun is just starting to come back doesn't mean you have to go, it's spring! Because it's not yet, it's still the middle of winter. We're still in Capricorn season, moving into Aquarius season. You don't have to really start doing anything till Aries. And even then, you don't necessarily have to. It's just that's when the energy actually starts growing. So, take care of y'all. Take care of yourselves. And just, yeah. Hopefully shit doesn't get too much worse. And or just worse in general. I really hope it starts getting better. But, let's see. Stuff's always moving and changing. Alright, I'm gonna get out of here. Y'all just take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Yeah, live your life.